Hey, boys and girls. It's Miss Mason. I'm going to go over the questions on your review for your test tomorrow. Please make sure you go through, listen to the explanations, make sure you get the correct answers in here so that you are good to go for your test tomorrow, Tuesday, when I get back. So it says list the numbers in order from least to greatest. It gives you 3 values here. Of course, you can't compare them least to greatest until you change them to decimals. So percent to decimal, decimal moves 2 places to the left and gets dropped down. So 19 decimal 19, 19% becomes decimal 19. Decimal 22 doesn't change. Hopefully by now you know that 1/3 is equivalent to decimal 33. Repeating. Least to greatest was our how we were to order them. 1, 2, 3. They're in order. The thing you need to remember is that you need to write the original problem when you come back to the final answer. So in order, those should be 19%, decimal 22, and 1/3. Convert the fraction to a decimal. Fractions to decimals, this is 6/8. 8 does not go to 10, 100, or 1,000, so you should be thinking benchmark fractions. 1/8 is equivalent to decimal 125, and you need 6 of them. So times 6 or adding 1.25 6 times. 0, 3, 12, and 15. That's not right. 3. Decimal 125 is 6, 7, 8. 2 times 6 is 12, 13, 14, 15. Carry the 1, so decimal 750. Okay, so decimal 75. You could also take this fraction and look at it. You see 6 and 8 both divide by 2. So you could simplify it by dividing by 2 and ending up at 3/4, which you should know by now is equivalent to decimal 75. Number 3, convert the fraction to a percent. Well, by now we should know that percents are always out of 100. How do I get from 20 to 100? Times 5, and 17 times 5. 17 times 5 is 85. So what percent would that be? 85%. And I hope you're not just looking at answers. I hope you're listening to how to get to each of these items, because you're going to have to change them over for your test on Tuesday. Convert the decimal to a fraction. We have talked about the fact this has 1.03. The whole number does not become part of the fraction. The only part that is a fraction is the decimal portion. So when you write this as a fraction, your whole number gets carried over, and then you write 3/100ths. This is 2 digits out, so 3/100ths becomes your fractional part. 1 3/100ths does not simplify, therefore it is in simplest form, and you are done. Jumping back and doing a bit of a review, using the given picture, what is the ratio of smiley faces to hearts? Write the ratio 3 different ways. Smiley faces came first, so that goes on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hearts came second, that goes on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 9 to 7, or 9 to 7, or 9:7. Looking at number 6, it says to model 40% on the grid. Well, you have an empty grid. You have to model 40%. What does 40% look like as a fraction and a decimal is what it is asking you first. As a decimal, it would be decimal 4 or decimal 40. As a fraction, it would be 4/10 or 4/100, depending on which way you're turning your setting your decimal up. Either a 40 or just a decimal 4, 4/10ths, or 4d/100ths. But then the final piece of that is you have to shade this box. So you have to count boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 times 5 is 20 boxes. So we then need to take this fraction and set it up with a denominator of 20 so that we know how many boxes to shade. 10 times 2 is 20. 4 times 2 is 8. So we are shading boxes. Number of boxes to shade would be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Done. The denominator has to be the total number of boxes before we know how many to shade. What percent represents the portion of the circle that is shaded? So we start with a fraction, just like with the boxes, except it's a circle. How many are shaded? 1, 2, 3. That's our our numerator. How many total pieces are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3/8. Hopefully you know now that 1/8, didn't we have 3/8? No, we didn't have 3/8 over here. You might have 3/8 memorized by now as a decimal. I don't know. If you have it memorized, great. If you don't, you know that 1/8 is decimal 125, and you need 3 of them. So decimal 125 times 3 ends me up at decimal 375, but it wants it as a percent. So you have decimal 375, and then you need to make it a percent. D decimal to P percent, you move 2 to the right, and add your percent sign, which is already there. Next, number 8, place the following fractions, decimals, percents in order from least to greatest. It should be old hat for you by now. 5/8. If you don't know it, 1 decimal 125 times 5, 10, 11, 12 gives you a decimal of decimal 625. Decimal 6 doesn't change. 17/25 is not a decimal place value, so it needs to be changed over to a decimal place value using 100. Times 4 times 4. 17 times 4, 868. So it will be decimal 68. And 63.2% becomes decimal 632. Doing comparisons, least to greatest, 6666 does us no good. 2083, smallest one is the 0, so decimal 6 comes first. 283, 2 is the next smallest, so 5/8 comes next. 8 and 3, 3 is the next smallest, so 63.2% comes next. And finally 17/25. Number 9, what decimal represents the shaded portion? First thing we need to know, if we're writing, we need to write it as a fraction first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 across. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down. Well, this one will be easy. 10 times 10 in the fraction means we have 100 boxes. And how many are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 100. So what decimal represents 7 100ths? Decimal 07. Then we go on to multiple response. Remembering, multiple response means that there could be more than one correct answer for the problem. And I can't tell. Hang on. Let me get this out wider so you can see all the choices. 4 choices. You might need to like scroll in on your screen because it's kind of hard to place this where it needs to be. All right, I think you can see all choices there. Which ratios are equivalent to 1.9? Well, obviously that's a decimal format. So if you take all these and you turn them into decimals, 19 over 100 looks like decimal 19. There's a whole number of 1 900ths, 2 decimal places out. Whole number of 1 9/10ths would be decimal 9. 19 divided by 10 leaves you a whole number of 1 with 9/10ths left over, which would also be a decimal 9. So multiple responses, which of these equals 1.9 would be C and D. Number 11, which of the following correctly represents 3%? If I turn that to a percent, that's 30%. 300ths, percents are always out of 100, so that's 3%. If I turn that to a percent, it's 300%, and decimal 03 to a percent is 3%. Doing the work for each one and then matching it up. Which ones represent 3%? B and D. Which of the following are equivalent to 3/20ths? Well, you see your choices are percent, fractions, and decimals. So the best thing to do is to take that 3/20ths and turn it into all of those formats first. So if we're turning it into a fraction, well, we could either make it bigger or simplify it, which it doesn't simplify, so we're good there. So if we're turning it into a fraction, it could be 15 over 100. As a decimal, it could be decimal 15, and as a percent, it could be 15%. So now we go through and we do the give me's. There's 15%. That is part of it. Right there it is. Is decimal 32 an answer? No, because it's decimal 15. Is decimal 15 an answer? Yes, right there it is. Can it be 1500ths? Right there's the fraction, 1500ths. Yes, it is. Is it 1.5%? No, it's 15%. So no, it's not 1.5%. Can it be 6 over 40? Now, this is the one where we have to do a little work. Is 3 over 20 equivalent to 6 over 40? Here we go, back to our proportions that we studied weeks ago, checking to see if they're proportionate. How do I get from 3 to 6? Times 2. Is 20 times 2 40? Yes, it is. So these fractions are equal. So that 2 is an answer. You need to make sure you're checking it. Select all of the numbers from the given list that are between 1/5 and decimal 66 repeating. Well, if we're looking to see if they're between it, we need to make them all the same. So 1/5 becomes decimal 2 or decimal 20, and 66.66 repeating stays as is. Well, if we're looking if they fall between, then all of these need to be decimals as well. So 80% becomes decimal 80. 33 is already decimal, 33 is already a decimal. 5/9 we know is the numerator. Anytime it's over a 9, it's the numerator repeating, so decimal 55 repeating. 25% is decimal 25 repeating, or not repeating, I'm sorry, decimal 25. 1/8 is decimal 125, and 7/8 is decimal 875, I think. Decimal 125 times 7, 5, 3, 7, yep, decimal 875. Now, here's the catcher with this one. These go up to 3 digits. This one goes up to 3 digits. So you should make all of these have 3 digits. Whoops, that would be a 6 because it's repeating. So that it's easy to look at them as a whole number. Or you can just do like we always do, make the comparison. Will it fall between or not? It's totally up to you. Then when I look at this now, I can see if I make them all have 3 digits, this is 200, this is 666. Does 800 fall between them? No, it doesn't. Does 330, because you would add a 0 to that, making it 3 digits. Does 330 fall between 200 and 666? Yes, it does. Does 555 fall between 200 and 666? Yes, it does. Does 125 fall between 200 and 666? No, it does not. Does 250 fall between 200 and 666? Yes, it does. Does 875 fall between 200 and 666? No, it does not. Marking those off, the ones that do not fall between those values. Oh, excuse me, nose is running. All right, graph the following values on the number line. Well, first off, you can see your number lines in what format? It's in decimal format. So it's probably best if you change your values that you're having to graph into decimals to make life easier. And by now it should be pretty easy. 80% is decimal 80. 30 decimal 33 stays. 5/9 becomes decimal 55 repeating. 1/8 is decimal 125. 25% is decimal 25. 7/8 is up here on your paper somewhere, right there, decimal 875. Don't rework. If it's on your paper, use it. If you've done it once, just reuse it. Decimal 8. Decimal 8 with a nothing after it. Next number is a 0, so it gets graphed right there. 80%. You're just going to write the number up there. Decimal 3. If this is 2 and this is 4, then this must be decimal 3, right? Halfway between is 5, so decimal 33 would fall in between there somewhere. You with me? 5/9, decimal 55 repeating. If this is decimal 4 and this is decimal 6, this must be decimal 5. 5 tells you to go halfway between, and then we have decimal 55. Oops, I'm sorry, that's 5/9 in the original. So you would write the fraction 5/9. 1/8, decimal 1, here's 0, here's decimal 2, so decimal 1 would be here. If they're looking for a 2, this is split into 10 pieces, so looking at decimal 2 and then 5 between that. Just like we did with our mouse with fur puzzle today. So don't forget it. Decimal 25, here's decimal 2, 5 is halfway between, so 25%. Would fall there. 7/8, decimal 8, clear up here. Here's 9, here's 5 in between, so decimal 875 will fall to the upside of that for the fraction 7/8. All right, last piece. See if I can get my paper lined up so you can see it, hopefully. All right. What percent of the stars are shaded? Identify the choice that best completes. So percent of stars shaded. First of all, we need to write it as a fraction because obviously that's not 100 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 are shaded out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ding, 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 ding. 9/15. Is 15 a number that you can turn into a decimal place value? No, it's not. So the first thing you should be thinking is simplify that fraction. What do 9 and 15 both divide by? They both divide by 3. How many 3's are in 9? 3. How many 3's are in 15? 5. Now, can 3/5 be turned into a decimal place value? Yes, it can. It can be turned into tenths. Or you can take that 3/5, since we're writing it as a percent, and take it straight to 100. It doesn't matter. 5 to 10 is times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, giving you 6/10 and then changing that into a percent, or going straight to 100 would be times 20. Times 20, 60 out of 100 gives us 60%. If you do it to tenths, you then need to change that into your percentage, that decimal to a percent. Number 16, which of the following statements are true? Comparing. Turn them into the same thing. So that percent is actually decimal 234. Does decimal 0234 equal decimal 234? Absolutely not. 9/100 equals 9 over 100. Well, 9 over 100 is decimal 09, isn't it? So that statement is true. 2/3. Decimal 66 repeating. Is that the same as decimal 006? No, it's not. How many 17s are in 100? Is 100 over 17 equivalent to 17%? I hope you're not trying to do the work because you know it's not. 17 over 100 is, but not 100 over 17. Which of the following numbers are between 7/20 and 1/2 on the number line? Time and time and time again, changing them to decimals. 7/20, not a decimal place value, so we need to make it a decimal place value so we can see what it looks like as a decimal, so writing it out of 100. And of course we know 1/2 is .50. 33, 1/3 is decimal 33 repeating. 1/8 is decimal 125. 2/5, 1/5 is 0.2, so 2/5 would be 0.4. And 2/3, of course, is decimal 66 repeating. This one has 3 digits, So you would want to make them all have 3 digits so you can look at them easily.